The recipes brewed on this show are provided by homebrewsupply.com. Fresh ingredients, best prices, and same-day shipping. Make your brew day better with homebrewsupply.com.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Recipe Recap. Where have we been? I don't know. It's been a while, but we are back, and that's what matters ultimately. And this is the show, in case you forgot, because it's been a while, where we go over the recipes that we're brewing, which happen to all be available at homebrewsupply.com. And when you use our promo code HHH, you get 5% off of your order at homebrewsupply.com. Not just the recipe kit, but anything in your cart. I think sometimes some things are excluded. All the details are there at homebrewsupply.com. Go there, check out again, our promo code and all the recipes. Todd, finally, the time has come for me to be able to try your Dunkel.
I didn't brew this.
Oh, to try your Dunkel, pardon me. You don't. Let me start over. You brewed it.
A commercial version you picked up in Austin.
Yeah, it was all me.
You brewed it. You kept it from me because you had a keg of it the whole time. That's what it was.
Dry January.
Dry January.
Mine meaning I own the beer, not that I brewed the beer.
That's what I mean. Correct.
Well,
cheers for another episode of Recipe Recap.
I got some of your beer on that toast.
James,
good.
Why don't you start us off with the Dunkel as a style and the whole kit?
Dunkel is it's a dark German lager. Usually has a little wheat in it. Pilsen malt is a base. Carafa 2, which I always use Carafa 2 because it's debittered. And maybe some Cara Munich or some Special B. This happens to have the wheat, the dark wheat, the Pilsen malt. It's got the Pilsner malt. I just said that. Light Munich, Cara Munich, and Special B. Cara Munich on this recipe from Homebrew Supply is type 1. So the cool thing about this, and you know how I am about hops, there's only one hop addition, Hallertau at 60. That's it. Super easy to brew, 150 degree mashing temperature, 60 minutes. I tend to do a 90-minute boil on these German lagers. So you want to anticipate that with your boil quantity because you're going to lose a little bit more from the half hour, but super easy to make.
Yeah. I will say I did not ask to get a Warsteiner Dunkel. I said I was going to do that before coming in. I totally didn't. That's my fault. But let's look at the color here. I'm going to hold it up to this camera here. That is like as dark as can be. Look at James's right there.
Yep.
Here's mine.
I don't have a camera.
You know, I can share my camera with you. What is it about the build of the recipe that gets it this dark?
Oh, it's the Cara Munich, the type 1. I want to say it's like 350 Lovibond. Don't quote me on that. You can go to Homebrew Supply and pull up the recipe and it'll tell you exactly what it is. But there's some roasted malt in it, that dark Munich, the dark wheat malt. You know, all of that contributes to the color of the beer. This one happened to end up a little higher gravity and you can get, that tends to happen when you have dark roasted malt because they're not as fermentable as like your base malts, but that can add body and sweetness to a beer. And that's typically what the style that I've seen with the Dunkels. They have a little bit medium to high body, and they're a little sweeter.
You know, you were a little upset you didn't hit a lower gravity, and you think it's sweet, but I don't. It's not overly sweet to me.
No.
And you know, I love a dry beer. I think it's it's pretty.
It does have, and I think it's because of the Hallertau hops. It does have that Dunkel finish.
It's very nice.
But me personally, I'd like to see it hit about 10-12, and I think this ended up at about 10-16.
I was going to ask your numbers for brew day, and
but it's 6%. So
what did you brew this specific batch on?
The
3-tier?
Yes, always. That's all I brew on now.
At the one at the office, or the
one at the office?
The new one.
Yeah, the new one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, well, it's almost the new one. It's a Frankenstein at the moment because we're testing everything.
Yeah.
So
y'all have no idea how much excitement people have had, by the way, just to sidetrack, because we've mentioned it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And people have written me in like, when is it coming out? How much is it going to cost? I said, I've said too much. And then
I'm ready. You know, this has been a great system that I'm brewing on over here, but it was a lot of the components. We were trying to test different components, and I'm having a few issues that luckily we found out about, because we won't have those issues on the new one because we changed the design of it. So
that's right.
It'll be nice to switch over to the new one.
On this specific recipe, James, did you have any hiccups in the brew day that?
This was one of those. I used harvest yeast, so it was a yeast repitch, and I didn't have any issues whatsoever.
Do you remember which? Pardon me. You said harvest. I heard Imperial in my head.
Yeah.
Harvest. I mean, you like harvest. You've been.
Yeah. In fact, the American Light Lager, I used harvest on it, but I used a fresh pouch.
Yeah.
And you guys, I can't say enough good things about Imperial yeast. Yeah. The last beer I brewed, the American Light Lager, the fluctuation on that yeast was so tight that it looked like I filtered it.
The Belgium that I just brewed.
Yeah, Todd's is the same way. So I can't say enough good things about it. It's it's very versatile yeast too.
Yeah, I was going to say, this episode's not brought to you by Imperial, but it might as well have been.
Yeah, exactly. Speak about them
because of how much we're going to talk about them.
Yeah.
So brew day was very straightforward.
Yeah,
it was on the 3-tier system. You pitched Imperial. Fermentation was about how long?
About 50 degrees. It took about, this one took actually two full weeks, 14 days.
Wow.
That's not bad.
And then I cold crashed it for 2 or 3 weeks. And then we did another batch on top of it.
So. Again, Todd, and you are always, first off, he's always his worst critic. Every single time. My favorite Dunkels, I've told y'all that Warsteiner happens to be one of my favorite.
That's a good beer.
No doubt. They have it on tap at Germany and Epcot, or the Epcot version of Germany. Because every time I tell Todd I go to Germany too, it's actually in Orlando, Florida, or Kissimmee, or Lake Buena Vista, or whatever. This seems like it's on the right scale of sweetness, is what I was getting at.
It matches the body with the hops.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But you saying that that's the only thing you would change about this specific batch.
maybe just dial down the sweetness.
It's a tiny bit sweet, but it's not. The great thing about it, again, is if you don't hit the numbers exactly right, it doesn't mean you won't have a fantastic beer.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be off a little bit and not hit it exactly, and it finishes out good like this. So
yeah, but as well, you're the same way. I mean, and we all brew beer to make the best beer we can brew.
Absolutely.
And better than the last beer we brew. So that measuring stick is pretty high.
It is.
And I think everybody's that way.
So
the people that go into homebrew to save money and just throw alcohol down their throat don't stay in it long.
You're not going to have a good
hobby that you have to love.
It's not going to be a good time if you're trying to save money.
And if I wasn't trying to make my beer the better than the last batch, I probably wouldn't be doing it.
Obsessive compulsive disorder helps. Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. Okay, wrapping it up. We like to always end the show with kind of putting it on a scale of, hey, if you're a beginner or maybe this is for intermediate, where would you put it on the scale?
Oh, that's a 2 or 3 easy.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Single hop addition, and also 1 temperature to mash, 150. And I think the recipe shows 152. I mashed at 150. It's a good go between the alpha and beta. Stick there and you'll be fine.
And like you said, you were grain to glass in 16 days? Or did you cold condition?
I did cold condition this one. The American Light Lager was 3 weeks. This one was more like a month.
So we're at how many days on that? 13?
Maybe. Yeah.
13 days on the one over here, and you could drink it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty clear, and it tastes good. So
because we all know, like, lagers still have a mystique to them. To a lot of people, but you're saying as far as lagers go, if you have the time and the ability, this is a 1 or a 2.
40, easy. 2. I mean, it's a lager, but just to add, I know y'all think, I can't do a lager. The only thing you need to do a lager, temperature control.
Yeah.
So if you can get you a conical with a chiller or even a homemade cooler with a pump and a temperature switch, as long as you can ferment it at about 48 to 50 degrees, that's all you need to do. Just remember, when you hit around 10-20, you got to do the diacetyl rest. That means turn the pump off, let it get room temp, let it finish out the fermentation, then you can cold crash it and just let it condition. It's that simple.
Todd, you ought to do an article on diacetyl rest, or maybe a quick video.
Yeah,
we should.
could.
Just because that's the question too that always comes up.
Yeah,
Where
and it's a compound that's typically found in lager yeast that is produced when it's eating sugar. So the cool thing about diacetyl is around room temperature, the yeast will consume it.
Yeah.
And they'll filter it out themselves.
So it's the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
You go ahead and when you brew it, put the yeast in, you let it run until, you don't want to let it run until you're all the way at gravity, because you want enough activity to be able to eat what's left. Mm-hmm. So maybe you get, what do you do, 1.18 or?
I do 1020. 1.020.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, just so that it gives, especially, the cool thing about the harvest yeast, guys, is it doesn't produce a whole lot of diacetyl, and sometimes lager yeast can produce sulfur too. That'll dissipate over time conditioning, but I always do my diacetyl at 1020.
Yeah, 1020, raise it up to, what about?
You could do, I've done diacetyl rest.
This one.
Typically they'll say 68, 70 degrees room temperature, but I've done it at 65 and it seems to work.
Yeah, I did mine at 68 last time.
Yeah,
and,
so I think as long as you're in the mid to upper 60s or room temp 70s in the summertime, it'll clear it up. It's amazing. It'll clear it up.
And then as soon as you finish and you get your gravity, then you can cold crash it.
Yep. So just hit it cold and let it stay cold, and all the little finings, unless you're using harvest yeast, because it fluctuates or clumps together and falls to the bottom, you don't have to worry about it.
And you can, another thing too is if you're doing a diacetyl rest and then you need to cold crash and you're worried about temperature, you can even put it in your kegerator and cold crash it.
Yeah,
you can even put it in your keg, and if you get some stuff that falls to the bottom, you either have a little bit of you cut your dip tube a little bit, or you just pour a couple of beers and you suck it out. So.
And we were talking about this, and I don't know if cutting the dip tube is better than, because if you think about it, if you cut a dip tube, it's going to slowly pick that up. I'd say this, don't cut it. It's got a little bubble in that corny keg. It's all going to settle in there. You might as well get it all out in one glass.
Put it out in your glass, and then you got nice clear beer afterwards.
Anybody that's watched a siphon tube pull liquid out, you can see when you get to the bottom, it just slowly pulls it up equally. And, it just, don't worry about that. Just get it all out in one glass and you're done.
Perfect. Well, I'm out, so I'm going to end the episode. So, James, great job. I don't have anything to cheers, but great job on the Dunkel.
Enjoyed doing it.
It was an incredible. It's nice to come back to the show with a good recipe. So, thank you so much, guys, for y'all's time. I'm glad that the show is back. Hopefully, if there's another hiatus, obviously it's my fault. You can send your hate mail to tburns@ketconnection.com, and that will do it for this episode of Recipe Recap. Remember, you can get this Dunkelweizen recipe at homebrewsupply.com. Use our promo code HHH and get 5% off, or if you want even bigger discounts, you can go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Check out all the different tiers that have different perks, including various levels of discounts starting at 5% all the way up to 12%. So that's patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. I had one too many. And thank you so much for watching this episode of Recipe Recap.
Prost.